11,600 years ago, hunter-gatherers built this. No farming. No writing. No civilization. Yet somehow, stone temples. Intricate carvings. Sophisticated astronomy. A best-selling author says it's proof of a lost civilization destroyed by a comet. Archaeologists say the truth is more extraordinary. Let's examine the evidence. Southeastern Turkey. The Anatolian Plateau. 45 kilometers north of the Syrian border. A limestone ridge rises above the plains. Local people call it Göbekli Tepe, Belly Hill. For decades, archaeologists passed it by. The hill was dotted with broken stones. Probably an old cemetery. German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visits the site. He picks up a flint tool. Then another. And another. He examines the stones more carefully. These aren't gravestones. They're worked stone. Shaped. Carved. He begins excavating. What he finds will rewrite the history of civilization. Radiocarbon dating places Göbekli Tepe between 9,600 and 8,000 BCE. 11,600 years ago at the oldest. That's 6,000 years before Stonehenge. 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid. 6,500 years before writing was invented. But here's the problem. In 9,600 BCE, humans are hunter-gatherers. They live in small, mobile groups. They follow game. Gather wild plants. No permanent settlements. No agriculture. Civilization, as we understand it, doesn't exist yet. The Neolithic Revolution, the transition to farming, is just beginning in the Fertile Crescent. Wild wheat and barley grow naturally here, but they haven't been domesticated. No one's planting crops. There's no pottery. No metal tools. No written language. Yet somehow, these hunter-gatherers quarried limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons, transported them hundreds of meters, carved intricate reliefs, and erected them in massive circular enclosures. It shouldn't be possible. But it happened. The signature feature of Göbekli Tepe, T-shaped limestone pillars. Some reach 5.5 meters tall, about 18 feet. The largest weigh up to 20 tons. Currently, more than 60 T-pillars have been identified. Geophysical surveys suggest there may be 200 or more still buried. The T-shape is deliberate. Symbolic. Most archaeologists believe they represent stylized human figures. Some have carved arms, hands, belts, loincloths, and covering many pillars, reliefs. Intricate carvings of animals. Foxes. Wild boar. Snakes. Scorpions. Gazelles. Aurochs, massive wild cattle. But the most striking, vultures. Raptor birds with outstretched wings. In some enclosures, specific animals dominate. Enclosure D is known for vultures and scorpions. Other enclosures feature foxes. This suggests different groups, clans, perhaps each with their own totemic animal. The pillars are arranged in circular or oval enclosures. Smaller pillars form the outer ring, all facing inward toward two massive central pillars. A gathering of unequals. Peripheral figures surrounding central authority. Whoever, or whatever, those central pillars represented held power. Enclosure D. The most famous structure at Göbekli Tepe. Excavated between 1995 and 2000, it became the face of the site. Radiocarbon dates place it around 9,000 BCE. 11,000 years old. The enclosure is roughly circular, about 20 meters in diameter. 12 T-shaped pillars form the outer ring, set into a low stone wall. In the center, two massive pillars. Over 5 meters tall. Facing each other. These central pillars are more elaborately carved than the others. Arms. Hands. A fox skin belt on one. They dominate the space. Everything is oriented toward them. And then there's Pillar 43. On the southeast side of the enclosure. A peripheral pillar. Covered in carvings. A vulture. A scorpion. A serpent. Abstract symbols. And something that looks like a headless human figure. This pillar, Pillar 43, has become the center of an international controversy. Because one researcher claims it's not mythology. He says it's an astronomical diagram. A date stamp. A record of a cosmic catastrophe. And that catastrophe, he argues, explains everything. Pillar 43. The Vulture Stone. In 2017, researchers Martin Sweatman and Demetrius Tsakritsis published a paper in Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry. Their claim, the carvings on Pillar 43 are an astronomical record. They argue the animals represent constellations. Scorpius. The vulture is Aquila or Cygnus. The circle above the vulture's wing? The sun. Using astronomical software, they calculated that the configuration matches the night sky on a specific date. 10,950 BCE. And not just any date. The beginning of the Younger Dryas, a period of rapid climate cooling that lasted 1,200 years. Sweatman and Sakritsis propose that Pillar 43 commemorates a cosmic catastrophe, a comet impact. They claim the headless human figure represents death and disaster. The animals are a star map. The entire pillar is a warning to future generations about celestial threats. This theory went viral. It fit perfectly with the ancient astronaut community. Graham Hancock featured it prominently in his Netflix series. But there's a problem. The excavation team at Göbekli Tepe published a response in the same journal. And they were not convinced. Enter Graham Hancock. Journalist. Author. Host of Netflix's Ancient Apocalypse. For decades, Hancock has argued that an advanced civilization existed during the Ice Age, before 12,000 years ago. This civilization, he claims, was destroyed in a global cataclysm, a comet impact at the end of the Younger Dryas. Survivors scattered across the world, bringing advanced knowledge to primitive peoples. They taught astronomy, architecture, agriculture, mathematics. Hancock calls them the magicians. And Göbekli Tepe, he argues, is their work. Not built by local hunter-gatherers. Built with their help, their guidance, their knowledge. In his 2015 book, Magicians of the Gods, Hancock writes that Göbekli Tepe appears pristine in the archaeological record. No precursors. No development. Just sudden, sophisticated construction. This, he says, is impossible unless someone taught them. He points to Pillar 43 as proof. A comet warning. Astronomical knowledge. A message from a lost civilization about the disaster that destroyed them. Hancock's theory captured global attention. His Netflix series reached millions. His books are bestsellers. But mainstream archaeologists call it pseudo-archaeology. And they have receipts. Hancock's central claim, Göbekli Tepe appears suddenly. No precursors. Therefore, external intervention. But is that true? No. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. It's part of a network. The Taz Tepeler, Stone Hills. At least a dozen other megalithic sites across southeastern Anatolia. Karahan Tepe. Harbutsuvan Tepesi. Sefer Tepe. Others. All built in the same period. Same style. Same T-pillar tradition. Karahan Tepe may even predate parts of Göbekli Tepe. This suggests a shared cultural tradition. A regional network. Not a single, isolated miracle. And before the Taz Tepeler? The Natufian culture. 15,000 to 11,500 years ago. The Levant region. Semi-sedentary hunter-gatherers building stone structures. Grinding tools for processing wild cereals. Ritual burials. A clear trajectory. From Natufian semi-sedentary camps to pre-pottery Neolithic a monumental architecture. Not sudden. Gradual. Furthermore, the construction techniques at Göbekli Tepe are consistent with the technology available at the time. Flint tools. Wooden levers and ropes. Patient labor. No advanced metallurgy. No lost technology. Just human ingenuity. The Society for American Archaeology issued a public statement condemning Hancock's work. They called it harmful and noted that it discredits archaeologists while suggesting indigenous peoples couldn't achieve great works without external help. Harsh words. But archaeologists argue the evidence is clear, Göbekli Tepe is a human achievement. But what about the comet? The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. 12,800 years ago, the Earth was emerging from the last ice age. Temperatures rising. Ice sheets melting. Then, suddenly, global cooling. Temperatures plummet. A return to near-glacial conditions for 1,200 years. This is the Younger Dryas period. What caused it? Mainstream science points to changes in ocean circulation. Melting ice sheets released massive amounts of fresh water into the North Atlantic, disrupting the Gulf Stream, the conveyor belt of warm water that moderates global climate. But in 2007, a group of researchers proposed an alternative, a comet impact. They claimed to find evidence at sites across North America and beyond. Platinum anomalies. Nanodiamonds. Microspherules. Black mats, layers of charcoal suggesting massive wildfires. All dated to 12,800 years ago. Their conclusion, a fragmented comet struck Earth, triggering global fires, megafauna extinctions, and climate chaos. The theory made headlines. It fit Hancock's narrative perfectly. But the scientific community pushed back. Hard. In 2023, a comprehensive study in Earth Science Reviews by Vance Holliday and colleagues systematically challenged the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Their findings. The platinum and iridium anomalies? Not consistently reproduced. Some labs found them. Others didn't. Questionable methodology. The nanodiamonds? They can form in wildfires. No impact required. Microspherules? Volcanic origin. Industrial contamination. Terrestrial processes. Black mats? Formed by wetland vegetation. Nothing to do with cosmic impacts. And the biggest problem, no crater. Proponents claim the comet airburst in the atmosphere or struck the Greenland ice sheet. But the proposed Hiawatha crater? Its age is uncertain. It might be millions of years old, not 12,800. As for the climate change, the mainstream explanation, ocean circulation disruption, is well supported. No comet needed. In 2024, impact proponents issued a rebuttal. The debate continues. But the majority of geologists, climatologists, and archaeologists remain unconvinced. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is controversial. Not consensus. Now, back to Pillar 43. Sweatman and Sakritsis claimed it dates the Younger Dryas impact to 10,950 BCE. But the Göbekli Tepe excavation team, led by the German Archaeological Institute, published a response. Their objections. First, chronology. The proposed date of 10,950 BCE is 700 to 1,000 years older than the earliest radiocarbon dates from Enclosure D. If Pillar 43 commemorates an event in 10,950 BCE, why was it carved centuries later? Second, the astronomical interpretation assumes ancient Neolithic peoples used the same constellation boundaries we use today. But constellations are cultural constructs. The Greeks saw Scorpius. The Sumerians saw different patterns. Why assume Göbekli Tepe's builders saw our constellations? Third, cherry picking. Pillar 43 has multiple carvings. Why focus only on the ones that fit the comet theory? What about the others? Fourth, context. The excavation team notes that Pillar 43's headless figure has an emphasized phallus. This fits widespread pre-pottery Neolithic mortuary themes: death, fertility, regeneration. Not a comet disaster. Ritual symbolism. And finally, none of the other enclosures at Göbekli Tepe, or any of the Taz Tepler sites, show similar astronomical patterns. Why would only one pillar commemorate a global catastrophe? Archaeoastronomy, the study of how ancient cultures understood the sky, is a legitimate field. Stonehenge is aligned to solstices. The pyramids align with Orion's belt. Chichen Itza's El Castillo creates a serpent shadow at equinoxes. These alignments are real, measurable, repeated across multiple structures. But Pillar 43? There's no structural alignment. The enclosures aren't oriented to celestial events. The pillars don't track solstices or equinoxes. Sweatman's interpretation relies entirely on matching animal shapes to modern constellations, a method archaeoastronomers call patternicity. The human brain is wired to see patterns. Faces in clouds. Shapes in stars. When you have dozens of carvings across multiple pillars and thousands of possible astronomical configurations, you can find matches. But that doesn't mean they're intentional. Statistical analysis is key. Are the matches more frequent than random chance would predict? For Pillar 43, the answer is unclear. The proposed matches are plausible, but not compelling. Archaeoastronomy requires independent verification. Repeated patterns. Structural alignments. Pillar 43 offers none of that. So if Pillar 43 isn't an astronomical diagram, what is it? The excavation team believes it's part of a complex symbolic and ritual program. Göbekli Tepe was a gathering place. A sanctuary. Somewhere hunter-gatherer groups from across the region came together for ceremonies, feasts, and communal construction. The pillars likely represent ancestors. Deities. Powerful figures from mythology. The animal carvings? Totems. Clan symbols. Representations of the natural world that shaped their lives. Vultures appear frequently in Neolithic iconography, especially in mortuary contexts. They're psychopomps, guides of souls to the afterlife. The headless figure on Pillar 43? Not a disaster victim. A ritual representation of death and transformation. This interpretation fits the broader archaeological context. It doesn't require lost civilizations or cosmic catastrophes. It requires understanding the people who actually built Göbekli Tepe. And here's the thing, the real story is more interesting than fiction. Because it turns out hunter-gatherers were far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. The question everyone asks, how? How did hunter-gatherers, with no farming, no cities, no centralized government, build Göbekli Tepe? The answer lies in understanding their world. 9,600 BCE. The end of the Ice Age. The climate is warming. The Fertile Crescent is rich with wild cereals, wheat, barley, rye. Game is abundant. Gazelle herds. Wild cattle. Boar. This isn't a marginal environment. It's paradise for hunter-gatherers. And recent evidence suggests they're not fully nomadic. They're semi-sedentary, living in villages for part of the year, processing wild cereals in large quantities. More than 7,000 grinding tools have been found at Göbekli Tepe. That's not a transient camp. That's intensive food processing. They're grinding cereals for porridge, for beer, for feasts. The quarries where they cut the pillars are nearby, less than 500 meters away. The limestone is naturally layered. It breaks along fault lines. They dig channels around a pillar shape, undercut it, and lever it free using wooden beams. No metal needed. Flint tools, stone hammers, wooden wedges. Transportation? Ropes, sledges, lubrication, water or animal fat. And lots of people. Experiments suggest as few as 12 to 24 people could move a pillar in less than 4 months. Not magic. Engineering. But here's the real key: how do you get hundreds of people to work on a massive construction project when there's no king, no government, no coercion? You feed them. The work feast hypothesis. Archaeologists have found vast quantities of animal bones at Göbekli Tepe. Gazelle, aurochs, wild sheep. Evidence of massive communal feasts. Not everyday meals. Ceremonial consumption. Thousands of people gathering, eating together, working together. And the grinding tools? They weren't just for porridge. Beer. Fermenting wild cereals produces alcohol. Beer was sacred in the ancient Near East. A gift from the gods. A social lubricant. A reason to gather. Some researchers call Göbekli Tepe the world's first brewery. The work feast model explains everything. No central authority required. Just shared ritual. Shared labor. Shared celebration. Groups travel from across the region, some from 200 kilometers away. They bring labor. They bring resources. They participate in construction. In return, a feast. Beer. Communal bonding. Status. This wasn't slavery. It was voluntary. Driven by belief. By belonging. By the desire to be part of something greater. It's the same mechanism that built medieval cathedrals. The same spirit that drives barn raising in traditional communities. Human cooperation at scale. Let's return to the quarry. Just northeast of the main site, there's an unfinished pillar. Still attached to the bedrock. It's 7 meters long. Would have weighed over 50 tons. The largest T-pillar ever attempted at Göbekli Tepe. It was never finished. Possibly cracked during extraction. Abandoned in place. But it shows us exactly how they worked. Channels cut around the pillar outline. Deep grooves. Tool marks visible. No bronze. No iron. Just flint. Flint is harder than limestone. When struck correctly, it fractures into sharp edges. Neolithic peoples were masters of flint knapping. They use flint picks to peck away at the limestone. Slow. Patient. Grinding dust and fragments. Once the channels are deep enough, down to a natural fault line in the rock, they insert wooden wedges. Wet the wedges. The wood expands. Tremendous pressure builds. The pillar breaks free. No explosives. No modern machinery. Just geology. Physics. And persistence. It would take weeks. Maybe months. But time wasn't the constraint. Labor was abundant. Motivation was strong. And the result? Monumental architecture that lasts 11,000 years. Göbekli Tepe forces us to rethink social complexity. For decades, the model was simple: agriculture creates surplus. Surplus creates inequality. Inequality creates hierarchy. Hierarchy creates monumental architecture. But Göbekli Tepe reverses the order. Monumental architecture before agriculture. So how was labor organized? The enclosures themselves provide clues. The layout is hierarchical. Peripheral pillars, smaller, less elaborate, surrounding 2 massive central pillars. A visual representation of social structure. The center dominates. The periphery differs. Some scholars propose a status society. Not based on wealth, there's no accumulated property. Based on knowledge. Ritual authority. Control of sacred lore. Shamans. Spiritual leaders. Keepers of mythology. They don't rule through force. They rule through belief. Different enclosures emphasize different animals. The fox enclosure. The vulture enclosure. This suggests clan identities. Totemic groups. Each clan contributes labor. Each claims a sacred space. The central pillars? Possibly ancestor figures. Founding deities. Representations of the powerful dead. This system, ritual hierarchy, clan cooperation, spiritual authority, was sophisticated enough to coordinate hundreds of people over generations. No agriculture required. And it worked. For years, Göbekli Tepe seemed unique. An anomaly. One miracle site. But we were wrong. It's not alone. The Taz Tepeler, the Stone Hills. Since 2000, archaeologists have identified at least a dozen other megalithic sites across southeastern Anatolia. Karahan Tepe, 46 kilometers east of Göbekli Tepe. T-pillars, carved chambers, possibly even older. Harbutsuvan Tepesi, Sefer Tepe, Sayaburnu, Kurt Tepesi, all built in the same period. Same architectural tradition. Same symbolic vocabulary. This wasn't one isolated site built by a lost civilization. It was a cultural movement. A shared tradition across a region. Think of it like Gothic cathedrals in medieval Europe. Chartres, Notre Dame, Canterbury. Different sites. Same tradition. Built by the same culture. The Taz Tepler network spans hundreds of square kilometers. Each site with local variations. But all connected. In 2021, Turkey launched a major project, systematically excavating the Taz Tepler sites. What they're finding rewrites Neolithic history. And it proves Graham Hancock wrong. Because gradual cultural development leaves traces. And we're finding them. Karahan Tepe deserves special attention. Discovered in 1997. Serious excavation began in 2019. What makes it remarkable, it may predate Göbekli Tepe's earliest layers. Radiocarbon dating is ongoing. But preliminary evidence suggests construction beginning around 9600 BCE, possibly earlier. The architecture is similar, T-pillars. Circular enclosures. Animal carvings. But there are differences. Karahan Tepe features carved chambers, rock-cut rooms carved directly into bedrock. Rectangular. With benches. Niches. These chambers include carvings of human faces. Phalluses. Hands. One chamber contains a life-sized human figure carved in relief, arms crossed over the chest. Another shows a sequence of carved faces along the wall. Ancestor gallery, perhaps. The site is massive. Geophysical surveys suggest much more remains buried. And it's not the only one. Excavations at Harbutsuvan and other sites are revealing similar patterns. This regional network proves that Göbekli Tepe wasn't a fluke. It was part of a broader cultural phenomenon. A shared symbolic world. A shared religious tradition. A shared way of organizing labor. Gradual. Indigenous. Human. One of Göbekli Tepe's greatest mysteries, the burial. Around 8000 BCE, after 1,500 years of use, the site was deliberately backfilled. The enclosures were filled with thousands of tons of limestone rubble, flint tools, animal bones. Carefully. Methodically. This wasn't natural erosion. Hills don't accumulate sediment, they lose it. This was intentional. Klaus Schmidt, who excavated the site from 1995 until his death in 2014, believed it was a ceremonial act. A ritual killing of the sacred space. His theory, as the people transitioned from hunting and gathering to agriculture, their belief system changed. Göbekli Tepe, tied to the old nomadic ways, became obsolete. So they buried it. Closed the chapter. Moved on. They did not need it anymore, Schmidt said. Now they are farmers. But recent excavations suggest a more complex story. The current excavation team, led by Lee Clare, has found evidence of terracing walls. Efforts to hold back sediment. This suggests natural erosion was a factor. Landslides. Hillside slumping. Perhaps the enclosures were gradually filling naturally, and the inhabitants completed the process intentionally. Or perhaps it was purely ritual. We don't know. But the burial preserved the site beautifully. Which is why we can study it today. Why would they bury their most sacred site? Several theories. Theory 1, obsolescence. Schmidt's original idea. Agriculture changed their society. The old beliefs no longer fit. Theory 2, new religion. A new belief system emerged, requiring the destruction, or desanctification, of the old. Theory 3, preservation. They intended to protect the site for future generations. Theory 4, neutralizing power. The site became taboo. Too dangerous. Its supernatural power had to be contained. Comparative archaeology shows that ritual site closures are common across cultures. The ancient Maya buried temples and built new ones on top. The Inca sealed sacred caves. Medieval Christians built churches over pagan shrines. Sacred spaces are rarely abandoned casually. Their closure is meaningful. At Göbekli Tepe, the burial was thorough. Complete. Final. Whatever the reason, it marks a major transition. The end of the Neolithic Revolution's first chapter. The hunter-gatherers who built these monuments were becoming something else. Farmers. Villagers. A new kind of society. And the temples that once united them? No longer necessary. Or no longer safe. Göbekli Tepe overturned one of archaeology's foundational assumptions. For decades, the narrative was, agriculture came first. Surplus food allowed people to settle. Settled people developed religion and built temples. First comes the plow. Then comes the cathedral. But Göbekli Tepe reverses that. First came the cathedral. Then came the plow. Klaus Schmidt called it the cathedral on a hill. Built by mobile hunter-gatherers who gathered seasonally for rituals and feasts. The labor demands of building and maintaining Göbekli Tepe may have driven the development of agriculture. You need to feed hundreds of people. Regularly. Predictably. Wild cereals won't cut it. You need cultivation. Storage. Planning. So religion didn't emerge from agriculture. Agriculture may have emerged from religion. The need to sustain sacred gatherings drove the domestication of plants. This is a paradigm shift. A complete reordering of how we understand the Neolithic Revolution. And it's supported by evidence. At nearby sites, archaeologists are finding early domesticated cereals. Cultivated fields. Evidence that farming began here, in this region, around the same time Göbekli Tepe was in use. Coincidence? No. Cause and effect. Religion built civilization. Not the other way around. The implications ripple far beyond Göbekli Tepe. Every Neolithic archaeology textbook had to be rewritten. Every model of social complexity had to be reconsidered. Hunter-gatherers were not simple societies waiting to evolve into farmers. They were capable of monumental architecture, complex symbolism, sophisticated social organization. They chose agriculture. It didn't just happen to them. And that choice was driven by their spiritual needs. This changes how we view other ancient sites. Stonehenge? Perhaps built before full agricultural societies, too. The mounds of North America? Evidence of pre-agricultural complexity. Göbekli Tepe opened the door. Now archaeologists are re-examining sites worldwide with new eyes. What else did we miss? What other assumptions were wrong? The story of human civilization is more complex, and more interesting, than we thought. And Göbekli Tepe is still revealing secrets. The story continues. In 2023, the German Archaeological Institute announced a major discovery, a life-sized wild boar sculpture in Enclosure D. Carved from limestone. Naturalistic. Powerful. It's one of the most complete animal sculptures found at the site. Evidence of artistic sophistication we're still uncovering. Also in 2023, completion of conservation work in the Leopard Pillar Building, another enclosure with intricate carvings. The site was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2018. Conservation is now a priority. Protecting the pillars from weather, from erosion, from tourism damage. But excavation continues. Geophysical surveys show that only about 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. 95% remains buried. More than 20 enclosures have been identified. Only a handful have been uncovered. If each enclosure contains a dozen pillars, there could be 200 or more T-pillars still underground. Each with carvings, symbols, stories. And beyond Göbekli Tepe, the Taz Tepler project is accelerating. Karahan Tepe, Harbat Suvan, Sefer Tepe. Each site offers new data. New insights. We're living through a golden age of Neolithic archaeology. And the next discovery? It could be tomorrow. Imagine what's still down there. 20 plus more enclosures. Hundreds of pillars. Thousands of carvings. Each one a window into the minds of people who lived 11,000 years ago. What animals will we find? What symbols? What stories? Will we find evidence of even earlier construction? Layers below the current excavations? Or evidence of what came after? How the transition to agriculture unfolded. The technology is improving. Ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, 3D scanning, AI-assisted analysis. Archaeologists can now map buried structures without digging. Analyze carvings in microscopic detail. Compare iconography across sites instantly. But excavation is slow. Careful. Each pillar takes months to expose, document, conserve. At the current pace, it will take generations to fully excavate Göbekli Tepe. But that's okay. Because rushing would destroy context. Miss details. Lose information. Archaeology is patient. And Göbekli Tepe has waited 11,000 years. It can wait a few more decades. So, lost civilization or human achievement? The evidence is clear. Göbekli Tepe was built by the people who lived there. Hunter-gatherers at the dawn of the Neolithic. Not taught by survivors of Atlantis. Not guided by ancient astronauts. Not the remnant of a lost super-civilization. Built by humans. For humans. Through cooperation, belief, and ingenuity. Graham Hancock's theory is compelling. It's dramatic. It captures the imagination. But it's not supported by evidence. The Taz Tepler network shows gradual development. The Natufian culture shows clear precursors. The construction techniques match available technology. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis remains controversial. The astronomical interpretation of Pillar 43 is unconvincing. But the real story? It's more extraordinary than fiction. Because Göbekli Tepe reveals that our ancestors were more sophisticated, more organized, more spiritually complex than we imagined. They built monuments to their gods before they planted a single seed. They gathered in the hundreds to carve stone and feast together. They created art that endures 11,000 years. They didn't need lost civilizations to teach them. They were the civilization. And their achievement, preserving these sacred spaces, even in burial, allows us to marvel today. This is Underlight Histories, where the overlooked is illuminated. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. See you next time.